afternoon, evening here in the United States, and welcome as well to the great people from Bugatti that are staying up so late for us this evening. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. So welcome. I want to welcome Frank Heil on the call. He's the Deputy Design Director of Bugatti Automobiles. We welcome.
Hello, everybody.
This is a great pleasure to have you, Frank, here joining us, and a huge treat. And as well, Hendrik Molenowski, who's the Director of Sales and Operations for Bugatti, is based in Molsheim, France. Thank you so much, guys, for being here with us. It's an honor, and we are fortunate to have you join us. So we'll dive right in. We're going to discuss some of the history of Bugatti, as well as what these beautiful cars stand for and what you guys are working on so hard behind the scenes to achieve and build what could be the greatest hypercar and car in the world. So you guys have done a beautiful job day in, day out to deliver customers a fine product and to continually set the bar for what a proper hypercar should be. And unbelievable that you guys even build a car with a W16 power plant, unlike anything. We'll also just share the Bugatti Greenwich, which is a division of Miller Motorcars, has been a Bugatti dealer since 2016. We've been fortunate to commission very special Veyrons, Chirons, as well as some of the unique editions such as the Devo, Cento 10, and so forth. We're also a service partner of excellence. We proudly support service for Bugatti as well in a more intensified way, with offering customers superior service to ensure their cars are in the greatest health. So thank you very much, guys. And we're going to be treated this evening with a great presentation by Frank and Hendrik. And I give you guys the keys. Please, let's go for a ride.
Thank you so much, Evan. This is, first of all, very kind of you. And it's an honor, actually, to be here today. What I have to also say in your direction, thank you for, let's say, your ambassadorship. Thanks for all you do in Greenwich for Bugatti. And as you know, it's a very special market for us, and has been an exciting journey so far. And I'm pretty sure we will continue as successful as it was. So what we will do today, and I'm very happy and delighted to give you a brief introduction to the brand itself before I will, let's say, hand over to Frank, who will dig deeper into the design, into the technology behind two very special derivatives of the Chiron. But we thought, and this will only last, let's say, 10 minutes, we could continue for hours, because as we celebrated the 110 years anniversary last year, being now in the 111th year, let's say, a very rich history in hypercars, I must say, because also back then, when everything started back in 1909, there already was an idea and a genius mind behind, which is still driving us today, and makes us enthusiastic about what we do, and so passionate about the product, the people behind, and let's say the performance, the luxury, and the exclusiveness of this jewel, Bugatti. So let me please, trying to put this up. What is driving us actually is the sparkle of Ettore Bugatti, the company founder. And I said back in 1909, everything started as he was actually discovered as a very young man, 1899, in Milan. So he's the son of Carlo Bugatti, Italian man who, came from Milan, where actually also Ettore was born and raised. He was actually exposing at the fairground a tricycle, the T1. We see in the picture, the second picture from the left, an engine-powered tricycle, 15 years of age only. And there was a clever businessman from the region of Alsace, where we are today, around Mosheim, Baron de Dietrich, and he discovered this young man, and he saw the talent, and it was just the beginning of this automotive industry, if you want to call it, because actually at that time, this fairground was more dominated by house carriages than anything else. So he was really blown away by this young man, and as clever as he was, he called him to Mosheim, and they began working together, actually on different vehicles already. They separated after 2 years because already Ettore, as a genius, as an artist, influenced by the artistic talent of his father, Carlo, who was very well known as a furniture, not only artist, because he was also cleverly selling his license or selling licenses of his furniture and making decent money already. So influenced by the artistic talent of his father, actually Ettore wanted to build, dreams as we do today, to build cars that go from A to A and not from A to B, as the Dietrich at that time wanted them. If you want to call them commercial vehicles, this was never in the mind of Ettore. So they separated after 2 years, and Ettore had some capital because he also was selling his first license of the baby Bugatti to Peugeot at that time, and he bought an old clothing factory where we are today in Mosheim, and this is how we see Mosheim still, as we see Ettore as a perfectionist. For him, it was not the product in the end, which was important, of course, but the way to get there, the perfection in every detail, of course, also influenced by the artistic genius mind of his brother Rembrandt. You see, and you look at every detail of the car, and you instantly see this artwork, this pieces of art as being so unique. And when we look at Mosheim today, and here we see pictures from the early 20s, it still is. Today, like we see the pictures here, he never lived in this chateau. He only used it for representative purposes, invited customers, invited media, invited his dealers, as we do today. And on the upper right, we see the production plant, of which he was very proud of, produced video footage already very early, also very unique and not normal at that time, to show this, let's say, dirty work in the production. And he was very proud of what he was doing. He was catering already to a very sophisticated clientele, I would say, very special customers, royalty, industrials. We see Baron Rothschild with a very famous car, the Type 57 SC Atlantique. This car resides in California since a couple of years, and a beautiful collection. Female race drivers, let me put it this way, drove the Type 35 because it was very nimble at that time, very easy to drive. So became very successful in this, and celebrities like Coco Chanel to be seen in his beautiful cars. And when we look what has been done over the years, and this is only pre-war, from 1909 to 39, how many different body types and mobility concepts he was creating, from Grand Prix cars, of which, and this is the first line, the T35 certainly stands out as the most successful racing car of all time. Then the touring, the super sports cars, the GTs, where we have the Atlantique, the Type 57 SC, as we just said, in 1935. And then the limousines, when he came up with the idea, when Rolls-Royce was to present the first Phantom, to say, no, it has to be a Bugatti, the most luxurious, the most exclusive car on the planet has to be a Bugatti, and this was the idea of the Royale. A very difficult timing, unfortunately, end of the 20s, beginning a world crisis. Royale, the car was made for royalty. At that time, no kingdom dared to buy a car like that, which was 10 times more expensive than the Rolls-Royce in the end. A massive and beautiful car, 16 to 50 long, 12.7 liter engine, 8 cylinders in a row, a massive block, 24 inches alloy wheels, super torquey. So he built 6 cars. He only sold 4. Was close to bankruptcy with this car because all the development, all the investment went to the development of the car. So he had to think of other, let's say, alternative sources. So he built the auto rail. He used the engine, this massive engine, and he built the train together with his son, Jean, who was also, let's say, adding the design genius to the engineering talent of his father. Also, out of his feather, the Athlon Peak was coming around. So they built this auto rail, and in 32, built the first train until the late 50s. This was the fastest engine-powered train on Earth. When we look at the second part in the history, which certainly is a very vibrant one as well, with a huge lack in the history of the brand of 30 years, between 60 and close to 90, I would say. When Ettore Bugatti died, and I'm fasting forward, is a very sad story because also Jean Bugatti, coming from Le Mans with the Type 37 tank, test driving the car, and died tragically in a test drive accident. He was the one to take over the company. Ettore Bugatti, he didn't cope with the loss of his son, and went to Paris. Left the company nearly alone. There was another son, Roland, who tried to make up with the T101 in 51, and also later with some ideas, but the technology got older. And then the company, in the end, was sold to Hispano Suiza. They built aerospace and aeronautical parts, and still use the factory around Molsheim until the late 90s. In the meantime, the company only existed in the heads of the enthusiasts, of the clubs, of these passionate collectors, until Romano Artioli revived the brand in 87 in Campo Galliano, this time in this magic triangle, super sport cars in northern Italy, with an amazing car, the EV110, as we all know, coming in 91. Also very difficult timing, I must say. Only around 100 cars were built. The company went bankrupt, and this was the time when in 98 Volkswagen acquired the brand, and this is where we are today. Going back on the era of Campo Galliano, the revival by Artioli, because also here for us it's a very important era, bridging the gap with this magnificent car, monocoque structure, 12-cylinder engine, 4 turbochargers, an amazing hypercar. And after financial difficulties in 95, actually, Volkswagen took over. And with the genius strike, we are where we are today, building not only the Veyron as we look into the history of the cars, certainly for us, the, let's say, icons, the T35, the Type 57 SC Atlantique, and also the Royale, represent not only the brand's automotive variety and characterize Bugatti the most, but also the speed, the luxury, and the elegance were actually the 3 characteristics Professor Pirch at the time wanted to combine in the Veyron. And it was, again, a genius mind, a visionary to kick-start the brand into this ultra-sharp positioning of course, technology, exclusivity, and of course, price. With a book of demands, which read like a dream, to build a car with at least 1,000 horsepower that drives 250 miles per hour roughly, accelerates from 0 to 60 miles in less than 2.5 per second, and go to the opera adequately with your wife in the evening, and all on the very same day. And this actually was realized after a long development, and to create and combine the best of these three worlds, performance, design, and luxury, the creation of the masterpiece beyond imagination, and also opening a new segment above €1 million that nobody thought of being possible. In the end, it was 450 units, 300 coupes. The Veyron, the Super Sport, the Grand Sport, the open top version of the Veyron, and the Grand Sport Vitesse, the open version, the Roadster, with the 1,200 horsepower aggregate. But not enough. Certainly, always striving to do more, always striving to do better. In 2016, we launched the Chiron, limited to 500 units. By the way, 260 units have been delivered so far, to confirm, to underpin this ultra sharp positioning, and to set another record with the technological masterpiece, reaching at the first time in the world 1,500 horsepower, and also again opening a new segment above 2.5 million. Positioning the ultimate hypercar, the Chiron is, we see, incomparable and without competition. Looking at the bandwidth between performance and luxury and comfort, of course, Bugatti is still on its own. And with this, I would like to hand over to Frank. And Frank will be able to give us some more insights of the latest developments, let's say, of the latest news. And thank you for the time being, for your attention. If there's questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Just to recap, my name is Frank Heil. I'm a Deputy Design Director at Bugatti, and today it's my honor to talk to you a little bit more about two products. First, the Super Sport 300 Plus, and secondly, the Pure Sport, and specifically about how the design of these two cars came to be. So we start with the Super Sport. So no vehicle or object or machine that has ever been truly pioneering has ever remained just an object. Rather more, in the moment of its achievement, it has become an icon. The Concorde is an icon, twice the speed of sound, and yet inside you can lounge airliner, an incomparable experience. The Bugatti has been compared to the Concorde, first car to sort of road car to break the 250 mile per hour or 400 kilometer per hour barrier. And yet inside is a perfectly comfortable and luxurious experience. To us, the Chiron is an icon. And this car has broken boundaries again and again, until present day, again, with recently now in the form of the Chiron, the 300 mile per hour barrier. I'll get into a little bit more about the design of this car specifically and how it came to be. So for us, it all started with the briefing from the board that we wanted to create a car to break the 300 mile per hour barrier, and immediately it became apparent that we needed to do a significant improvement to the drag, reduction in the drag. is because it's the first time we sketched a long tail on the Chiron, and it did actually prove to be the right way to go. If you look at this chart here, it's a flow diagram. On the top, you see the regular Chiron, and on the bottom, you see the long tail. And what happens here, what you can actually observe here, is the tear-off area in the rear. I hope you can see my mouse, actually. Is the tear-off area here, which is where the air separates from the car. And that's why we talk about drag. It separates from the car and it drags the car back. So that's why you want to shrink down that area to as small as you can get it, so that the air can only attach to a smaller surface to drag the car back, so to minimize the drag. And what happens here is, by elongating the car, you actually bring together the downward sloping surfaces on the top and the upward sloping surfaces on the bottom closer together to a smaller tear-off area. And that's how drag reduction is being done due to the long tail. And here you can see a section comparison in direct rear view. So red outline is the Chiron, and the yellow outline is the Chiron Supersport 300 Plus, where you can see we have shrunken down that tear-off area by 40%, which is quite a lot. If you consider, usually in aerodynamics, you talk about points and decimal places, and if you talk about a number of 40%, that is substantial. And it's partially being done by bringing down the top and bringing in the side and bringing up the bottom, but also by a reconfiguration of the exhaust system. So usually we have the exhaust in the center, and we've now, and it's 4 exhaust pipes, and we've now stacked up 2 and 2 on top of each other to save the space in the diffuser area as well. And so that's how the tear-off area is being shrunken down on the long tail. And it's pretty much how the design came to be. And we then went on to countless hours of CFD analysis and exactly how long would the long tail have to be. And in this case, it ended up being about 10 inches longer, and exactly how that ducktail spoiler would have to be and how the diffuser would have to be shaped. And all of these things went on from there. Here you can see another design sketch also illustrating the diffuser, especially here where you see it's very clean in the middle, and you have these kind of 2 exhausts stacked up on top of each other. And from there, we teamed up with one of our partners in Italy called Dallara, race car experts. Long-term partners of us have been involved already from the Veyron times. And experts really in aerodynamics. And so we did countless hours in first of all, wind tunnel simulation, also CFD simulation, so computed fluid dynamics, which is like a virtual wind tunnel, if you will. That is a step before you actually go into physical models. You try to achieve a certain status in the development, and then you go and produce hardware and go into the actual physical wind tunnel. So especially with a car here that is meant to go beyond 300 miles an hour, it is vital to get the balance right. So that means how much downforce do you have in front and how much downforce do you have in the rear, and bring those two into balance. And that is not so easy to achieve, because you have to imagine at 300 miles per hour, the forces pulling the car up have to be canceled out by the downforce that the car itself creates to stay neutral. We want neither to have lift nor downforce at that speed, not to overload the tires, because the tires are critical at that speed. So no added downforce was to be found. And I could go on now for hours and hours and hours of how we optimize this car, but I maybe just pick out one detail, which is this ducktail spoiler in the rear here. Many different shapes have been experimented with as to how far back that has to sit and how high it has to raise up, what the rake angle should be, how it should be curved And that was tested with this 2.5 scale model that you see here, that is suspended from the ceiling, and it's actually sitting on a black belt. It looks like a conveyor belt that you would see when picking up your luggage at the airport, but it runs a little bit faster. And so countless hours also went into how to shape the underfloor. Italian is this kind of very emotional way to talk about these things. So one day I'm sitting at my desk, this email arrives, and he's just writing in the way that he would write, and we were very, very amused by that. So he just writes, looking at the rear spoiler, CFD result just arrived. My thought was the hand of God, like the Maradona in '86. So we were all laughing really hard, and that was a nice story. So that kind of is his way of saying, okay, we're done now with developing the rear end. That's going to be good enough to go 300 miles an hour. And so here you see a shot of Airless Sound. It's a very long straight, guardrails on the side, really try to play this as safe as possible. And here you can see again also the exhaust configuration. We call those F6 Lightning Jet inspired because it kind of looks like the afterburner of a F6 Lightning Jet. That also has two afterburners stacked up on top of each other like this. And it basically clears up the center part of the diffuser, which is, we found, the most effective part of a diffuser. So by removing the exhaust from that central part, left and right, we have a much bigger rear diffuser that is actually effective to actually be able to keep the rear wing in, even at top speed. So it will sit completely flush in top speed mode, so that we can actually attach the airflow to the car for as long as possible. We call this laminar airflow. So have the air attached to the body and just have it tear off at this very precise edge at this ducktail spoiler here. And that is what the diffuser plays a vital part in, because as I explained earlier, you need to create a lot of downforce to actually have no downforce right at that speed. So coming around to the front, also, first of all, from design side of things, the styling, the look, what should be the impression on the face. We try to give it a more sinister look, right? The angry eyes, give it the stance, the presence that we wanted to have on the road. And it's the same headlight actually. It just has a different to it, right? A different cutout to it. Kept the headlights to preserve the Chiron identity, right? After all, it's still a Chiron actually. And but we created these large air curtains here on the side. You can actually look through those. It's a very fragmented feature. It is the killer feature of the car, because without this, the car wouldn't be able to achieve the drag that is necessary for going 300 miles per hour. And these are actually there to divert the air around the corners of the car. This is something that we learned already in the development process of the Chiron, especially now, if you try to go beyond 300 miles per hour, this corner here at the front edge of the car is vital. What you mess up on that front edge, you can never recover on the side or on the rear. So what happens if you drive 300 miles an hour with this shape, what happens is the air hits this corner and actually creates a huge negative pressure area here on the side. That creates drag first, and secondly, it'll mess up the air intake on the side and then mess up your thermodynamics. So our goal was to reattach the airflow to the side. You can see here in the bottom, we call this feature air curtain. So if I go just one slide back, it takes the air through this hole here alongside this blade, diverts the air and reattaches the air on the body side, so that you don't have this negative pressure zone and you don't have tear off, you don't have the drag. So this is a key feature here. You can see in the CFD analysis, this is again lots of incremental steps in fine-tuning just exactly what should the curvature of that be, how far should the blade be away, how what's the wind profile on the blade itself, just to redirect around the corner and make the car more slippery for the air to go through. And here you see that section cut through a digital model. And you can see that blade here. And as I stated earlier, we played around a lot with the section of that blade, with how far that blade should be detached off the main volume, and the shape of the main volume itself, just to make the air go around the corners of the car. So there you see a little bit more of how to be. There's another design sketch here showing that kind of Darth Vader attitude, we like to call it. And that's also where the color scheme sort of came from. A few more features here on the front wings. So we have these kind of also rocket launcher inspired holes on top. This is to relieve the pressure buildup from the front wheel wells. Also the holes here on the side. This is another drag reduction feature. You can see here from side view. So usually from the rotation of the tire and from the radiators that sit here in the front, venting there into the wheel wells, you get a pressure buildup in the front wheel wells. And that pressure buildup sort of pushes the car up in the front, unless you counterbalancing maneuvers here. So we have this slot here behind the wheel. We also have the slot down here that typically the Chiron already has, and we have these holes up on the fender here. Everything just to relieve the pressure from the front wheel wells and balance out the lift that it would otherwise create. Here you see another section drawing of the aerodynamic analysis. Reducing this dark blue area here. So there you see already it's a little step. As I said, it's the adding up of a lot of little incremental steps to get to the result. And so there you get a little bit more of an insight of what all it took just to achieve this moment. I'm sure lots of you have maybe seen the video. Andy Wallace here going 490 kilometers an hour. That is, it's 304 miles an hour, the record. That's basically this moment where he's sort of, the fist is up and is cheering. So you see a little bit more of what it took us to get to that moment. That's quite substantial work. And maybe to wrap this up, why is the car painted like that? Our record cars in recent years have always been the visible carbon fiber plus orange and a monochromatic enamel badge in silver on the horseshoe grille in the front. And so for this car, we stuck with that. There might be collectors like you guys who would appreciate if you have maybe a Velo Super Sport or a Vitesse World Record Edition, then they would give a nice pair with also the new car. And these two stripes sort of represent high speed stability. If you see the car going by in a flash, and it's these two stripes represent high speed stability. And that's all for the Super Sport story. I don't know if there's anything to add.
Well, it's a beautiful presentation, gentlemen. Thank you for giving us a really cool behind-the-scenes look at engineering and design and in history. It's fascinating. We do encourage everyone who's listening to leave a question. We're having a Q&A session, so if you have anything you want to ask any of these fine gentlemen, please don't hesitate. We'll pick a couple questions out. I think right off the bat, we're fortunate to we see a question from a great Bugatti ambassador, Chris Singh. We're going to get Chris on. He's going to ask a few questions. So we're fortunate. So Chris, we hope you're enjoying us. We'll get you here in a second.
Perfect. I think as well with the record we did going over 300 miles per hour, and we saw what from a design perspective, technology standpoint, is behind this. We to also, show what the W16 engine, and this is something which makes us so unique, is capable of, with the 1600 horsepower aggregate, is just phenomenal, right? From the beginning on, it was always clear to build something full mechanical, I would say. When the idea of the Chiron came across, certainly to look into what is possible without batteries, without a battery pack in order to pre-spin turbochargers electrically. So we came up, or engineering came up with this sequential turbocharging, and this actually shows the torque and power of this aggregate, of the drivetrain itself. What this dream is capable of doing, right?
Well, let's get Chris's video on, and I think he's just coming in right now.
Gentlemen, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Chris.
Yeah, I don't have the option for the camera right now. Little tech support issue here.
I'd love to see you.
Thank you. Let's see. We have a little tech support. Well, I could just... I'll start by saying that thank you so much for doing this presentation. It's very, very interesting and exciting to get to learn more about the new products and the history. Henrik, Frank, thank you so much. Evan, thank you for putting this on. Right now, I'm actually sitting in my EB110 Super Sport.
Cool.
Yellow. So once I saw the yellow one on the presentation, I had to come sit in mine and watch it from here and live out the fantasy. The Pure Sport seems to me, from what I've seen in what you've discussed about it and the presentation that is online at Bugatti's YouTube channel, it seems almost to be like the spiritual successor of the EB110 Super Sport, continuing the more driver-focused and racing heritage of Bugatti. Frank, do you feel that's an accurate description of the Pure Sport?
I could give you a brief presentation about the Pure Sport as well that I have prepared. If you are interested, shall we do this now?
I think that would be great. I'm so excited about that car. I think it is the hottest thing I've seen in years.
All right. Let's have a look.
Yeah, but Chris, I think you are absolutely right, because when we look at the Chiron, so perfectly sitting in the middle, balanced between, here we go, the high performance, luxury and comfort and driving, we proved with the Chiron Supersport 300 Plus, as we just said, longitudinal performance. And we saw, actually going back into the agile, and we looked at this historic development as well, this agile and very present part of Bugatti, also with the EB110. And this is why we thought that the Bugatti Chiron is also capable of going into this nimble and agile direction.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how much you can get out of the platform. I know you guys put an unbelievable amount of work into each version of Chiron, and I'm aware of the extent you guys have gone developing each one of these projects, to the point where it's arguably greater than most companies spend developing an entire new car. You guys devote to each one of these projects, and it's just unbelievable seeing the Chiron line come together with, like you said, the comfort and sportiness of the Chiron Coupe and Sport, as well as the top speed, possibly the most iconic car of this generation, the 300 Plus, and now the agile Pure Sport. I think it's very exciting.
Yeah, I mean this, and also for us, it gives really the opportunity to have no compromise and go into several different directions. This is the beauty of having, let's say, the possibility to do derivatives or derivates or versions, let's say. of these cars. So with the main product already in the market, the Chiron and the Chiron Sport, to go into the outside top speed direction, and then come back and go into the very other direction, which is handling and cornering and agility, proved quite a challenge, but also a lot of opportunity. So coming from the pure sensation of driving, this is not so much about top speed. It's rather more, let's say, cornering relevant speeds. We went about, and that's also where the name comes from, pure sport, to have a pure driving. So, and this is quite a bold step for us to say we do a Chiron that is not about the big speed number, right? Because that has been a Bugatti, let's say, thing for so long, and no Bugatti has ever been not about top speed. So that poses a big opportunity if you think about it. So a regular Chiron can go up to 260 miles an hour, and we've now said deliberately we take that down to about an hour. So that's significantly less, and the let's say the potential that arises from that in the handling and the setup of the chassis and the gear ratios we use to actually improve the cornering and the agility and the elasticity. So the main points about this car is the reduced weight, that's 110 pounds, is increased downforce together with that. It's got a new chassis setup, it's got new wheels and gear box, and it's got an engine that actually revs higher. So in all of that together, it's another lots of little things, but that add up to a totally different experience actually. And also from design side of things, also freed us up to make a car that is a bit more aggressive as well, a bit more eating up the road, right? Being quite nimble, and so that also is, that's why on if you look at these renderings here, that's where that impression came from, to divide the car up in the top part and the low part as well, also to visually speak that language of a little bit more brutality, of a little bit more brutal animal, right? And to divide up the heights, let's say, to make the car look wider and more planted even. So you have these kind of lower areas here that on the show car we have invisible carbon fiber, and the blue on the top kind of divide up the height, make the car look wider and lower, and more motorsport feel, if you so will. And also on the side, we introduced this sort of horizontal split, also there to divide up the heights, again, make the car seem lower and longer. And especially on the rear, we introduced this kind of X theme that comes from an enlarged diffuser together with that massive rear wing there. And so these are the, let's say, main design cues, or main design features. This sketch I like in particular because it also expresses a little bit of the soul of this car. That actually has a new mode for the driving modes that will allow a little bit more drift angle this time. So, which makes you be able to place the car on the throttle a little bit more, which is quite an interesting feature if the throttle is at the other end of 1,500 horsepower, if you so will. So if I get a little bit more into the details, for example, here the wheel, we've specifically decided not to do a full carbon fiber wheel, because to stick with a metal for the wheel actually creates like a heat sink, right? You create a lot of heat by braking. That heat goes into the wheel hub and then gets conducted into the actual wheel and be dispersed and cooled off. So that's why we chose magnesium, and there is actually no weight saving advantage to be gained from carbon fiber wheels in this respect. We've carefully figured this out, and so this is a 10-spoke magnesium wheel that has a very specific and special aerodynamic feature, which are these two rings, those are made out of carbon fiber, not to add any more unsprung mass. By the way, those wheels, they alone save about 35 to really feel. The car is much more sharp, much more nimble on the turn, and then this is part of the reduced rotational mass from these wheels. And these carbon fiber blades at rotation, they actually create a draft from the inside of the wheel to the outside. The air being extracted from the brake, which is a very trick way of cooling the brake, because in the end, it's not only about the size of the rotor of the material being a carbon fiber ceramic brake, but it's about the sufficient cooling of those brakes. And these wheels do a big part of that. And that goes very well together with a specially developed. It's not just any Michelin tire, it's specially made in the way that the layers are built up and the compound of the tire is perfectly suited to the chassis. And the chassis itself has 65% stiffer springs in the front and 35% in the rear. So you get a much firmer ride, if I may say so. Obviously, it's active dampening anyway, so there's a new software set of dampeners. And there's carbon fiber anti-roll bars. There's actually, and this is a big thing, because we did not have to go so fast anymore, top speed, we could allow ourselves a negative 2.5 degree camber, which is a lot for a road car, actually. That means the car is even more nimble and light and will turn in more because of this negative camber. It's almost like a racing car, right? That camber. And that goes together with this new driving mode. It's called Sport Plus, that you can select on the steering wheel, and that will allow certain drift angles as well. And that all together gives you a much different driving experience, actually. And this is the Sport Plus mode here. And now comes another here. So the reduced top speed actually made it possible for us to make a shorter gear ratio. And that's not only the final ratio, that every single gear in this gearbox is touched. Every part that you see in orange highlighted here is new. So it's basically 80% of the gearbox is new, which is a significant investment for, let's say, a derivative. So Chris is right there if he says this has cost an arm and a leg for us, right, to invest into, let's say, only a derivative, but it is making a cost. And now I'm getting to the numbers. This is quite crazy if you think about it. So think about yourself. You're sitting in a Chiron, 1,500 horsepower. You're thrusting yourself through some windy country road, and you're accelerating 1,500 horsepower out of a curve. And it's these cornering relevant speeds that are really interesting here. And now you have 40% better acceleration out of that curve. That is mind-blowing if you think about what regular Chiron can do with this shorter gearbox and the grip of the four-wheel drive and the more grippy tires and the suspension setup like this. To achieve a 40% increase is incredible. You have to think about this. And that goes together with the engine that now revs 200 revolutions higher, actually, so you can hold the gears longer, right gear, and the power band on the engine for every corner. And this is altogether what for me sells the car, to be honest, if I'm thinking about it. My ideal pack of Chirons would be actually this and a Super Sport, both in the garage. That would be my dream. So I'll just go through a couple more pictures here. You see also on the top, we have a different color split up to kind of split up the rear deck, which is full visible carbon fiber. This is an option. We call this the hybrid split, which is a first for us as well, to actually be able to do visible carbon fiber and paint. Here you see visible carbon fiber and paint on one body panel. So this is a work of art for the painter who does this, because there's certain different ways of having to treat paint jobs that are just clear coat on visible carbon fiber or clear coat plus the paint build-up below to the Bugatti standard. And I just clicked through some more images here. I don't know how quickly the build-up is on that web connection. but it just gives you an impression of how well this car sits and the stance of this car. Yeah, I don't know, Hendrik, if you have to add anything more to that. A few more questions.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think I'm just going to ask something a little bit different on the pure sport, Frank, in general. What does it feel like to be on a team to build one of the most influential and key cars of the 21st century? This is to be on the Veyron project, to then lead to the Chiron. How does it feel to be working on something? What drives
well,
you?
this is. I'm like my element. I'm like the total car nut. I'm like I live and breathe and love cars. And when I'm not designing cars, I'm driving track days in my private time, or whenever I'm not with my family or taking care of other stuff. And so it's all about cars. So I'm happy. I'm in my element when I'm doing cars. I've been with Bugatti since 12 years now. My first project was the Veyron Super Sport. And I'm just having the greatest time, really. It's an inspiring team. We work in a team. First of all, the designers, and secondly, obviously, I have this exchange with the engineers. I'm half an engineer myself, even though I never had an education in that direction. Just learning by doing. Sort of, in German we say autodidact, and sort of teaching yourself and finding out, try and error. But by now, I can say comfortably that I know a lot about hypercar designing and hypercar engineering, and it's really, I'm very thankful and grateful. It's very challenging at the same time and can be super stressful at times, because after all, we're working to very tight budgets, you might not believe, but it's everything calculated with a very sharp pencil here. So you have to really focus on where it's worth spending the money, and what you want to focus on to achieve the target, and in the end deliver on time. And there's a lot of projects running in parallel always, and it's only a small team, but that's also an advantage. If the hierarchies are low, then you can directly speak to the person who is in charge of every component and each and every, let's say, piece of the car, and that way you can in a very efficient way come up with a lot of special solutions that otherwise wouldn't be possible. I've worked for Volkswagen, I've worked for Audi, I've worked for Skoda, all of which are mass production car companies that work with sheet metal cars, basically. And there's a lot of things that we can do here in these handcrafted cars that are built in so few numbers that make solutions possible that otherwise wouldn't be possible because they're not mass producible. Let's put it that way. Is that an answer?
No, it's a beautiful thing. We have an interesting question for you, and also for Hendrik. I think as you guys in your world get, you guys have the Autobahn, you guys have your high-speed testing areas. What about you guys personally? What's the fastest, Frank, you've ever driven? Either in a Bugatti. This is a personal question, if you guys would ask.
This is the thing with the designers. The designers, they don't have such a good excuse like the engineers to go and test drive, nor like Hendrik with his sales team. I have an excuse. I can drive a Bugatti because I had to show a cut line or whatever. So we never get to drive so many times. But nevertheless, I went 350 kilometers an hour in Erlesien in an open top Vitesse, which was extremely loud, I have to say. But I don't know how much that is in miles, actually. But that 350 is not even that fast, is it? But for me, it was quite fast.
Well, that's some serious speed. That's 217 miles an hour. So.
All right.
And Hendrik, what about you, champ?
Yeah, but I tried to calculate mine. This was 370 kilometers per hour. I remember very well when we had the Chiron first dynamic test driving activities. I had the chance to drive with Andy Wallace as a passenger, so this was quite an experience, and of course, learning from the best. was giving me confidence. So I can tell that this was very fast. Yeah.
That's fascinating. And good. Frank, perhaps there's a fond memory you have. You've been working for Bugatti on this team. You guys behind the scenes see great things. Any fond memories? Things are, an achievement that made you feel really special.
Yeah. I think, as I said, now I've been working here 12 years, and but I think there's one moment that happened in September last year. At the end of this whole record program with the Super Sport, there was the Grand Fête in Molsheim, 110-year anniversary, and Mr. Winkelmann drove the 300 plus on stage and rapped it a few times and got out, did his speech, and there were a lot of customers there. It was the finish of the Grand Tour, so these guys had a great time on the Grand Tour. They finished there, and we had a fantastic party. That party was the killer party, and the atmosphere was like we were a family. We were all together, one big family, and the atmosphere in that, it was a tent actually that they had built outside of the chateau, and that atmosphere. So yeah, okay, there's the record car. We've gone through all this hassle to make it work. We've achieved the record, and now there's the customers, and we're all celebrating together. That was the most beautiful all these 12 years working for Bugatti.
Well, that's quite a special. And what about you, Hendrik? Anything that over your career at Bugatti that's been a highlight for you?
Well, I must say there are certainly. This was the 110 years anniversary. Overall, was an amazing year for us. Not only from an experience standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint in terms of deliveries and. Also the world record, of course, the 300 plus, the 30 units, sold very quickly. The introduction of the 110 in autumn 2018, and then this also followed us over the years. So I must say that the last 3 years were really mind-bending, I would say, in this regard. We achieved a lot, and I have the luck that being based we are, let's say, working very close to the heart, if not directly attached to that, I must say, seeing our partners, the dealers, the customers there, and as Frank just said, Bugatti is not only let's say a hypercar brand which is known for extraordinary performance and luxury, but is also known for being very, let's say, authentic, very down to earth, very approachable. And with buying a car, it's also not only getting the key for your car, but also getting the key for Molsheim as your home, and we have done amazing things together with customers, private dinners in the atelier amongst the cars, with Lang playing piano. We hosted amazing events, and seeing customers actually so overwhelmed with this emotional, let's say, moments. This is truly exceptional, I would say.
Lovely. I think we actually do have our beautiful our guest as well. Why don't we get Chris back on? I think he's ready to join us. He got his system working.
I'm on. Gentlemen, how are you?
Hey, there he is.
How are you?
It's all yellow in your picture. How's that?
Super Sport.
Super Sport. We can turn it around.
Wow.
To Vitesse.
And famous Vitesse.
Both amazing cars, and I have to say, I am so excited about all the new products you guys have been working on. From, as you were mentioning, the 110, which is another unbelievable machine. Just seeing it next to this car here at Pebble Beach was remarkable. That you were able to bring so much of the design language from the previous generation and implement it onto the platform that you have now. What was that like, guys? Getting as far as being able to take all these design elements, because I know with crash structures and especially with the Bugatti having a 16-cylinder quad turbo, there's a big need for airflow going certain places, the radiators. How difficult was it to create something like the Cento DHA and the Devo project as well?
Well, those two projects, we really kicked off the whole thing. That's what we call coach building. I mean, maybe I put this picture on here. Can I share my screen again?
Whew.
Frank, is that your personal garage?
Yeah. I just snapped my backyard there. No, this is the atelier in Molsheim in France. Just a few days before this whole Corona lockdown came, I was still there, and he had those 5 cars assembled, all in one place. It's a very rare moment, actually. So we have the Pure Sport, we have the Devo in the background, La Voiture Noire, Cento DHE, and the record car here in the foreground. So the background there, the Devo, La Voiture Noire, and the Cento DHE, gave us the chance to open up into so many different directions, right? They're each very individually, let's say, targeted. The Devo is very aggressive, very angular. It's about cornering. The Voiture Noire is about elegance. It's got that story connected to the Type 57 SC. The Cento DHE is paying homage to the Italian era of the EB110 and Romano Artioli and all that. So being all based, obviously, on the 16-cylinder, let's say, platform of the Chiron, yet all of them have a distinctly different exterior. So that meant every time you'd have to fully redevelop thermodynamics, aerodynamics, tooling concepts, and all of that, the changes that I've just said anyways. New headlights, new taillights. So the freedom that we were allowed as designers was absolutely great, fantastic. And it also freed us up from having to do one car that has to do it all, right? So we could go into very specific directions and even, let's say, deviate from things that we would normally do, had to have the Bugatti line in a certain way, had to have two-tone color configurability in a certain way. So that freed us up. And they were, again, also a great challenge because of the timing.
Well, that's quite a sight. Thank you for sharing that with us. Chris, anything else while we have you? Can you tell us a little about that Vitesse, actually, that you just shared with us? Someone said it's special. Why? I mean, a Vitesse is special in itself, but maybe Hendrik and Chris, you can share a little bit more about that and the provenance.
It's a beautiful car. I got the Vitesse, I guess it was maybe how long ago, Evan?
Maybe a year and a half ago.
A year and a half, and I drive it nearly every day. It's a great car. It's unbelievably comfortable, ungodly fast, smooth. Unlike other cars that go to speeds that are mind-bending, Bugattis do it in a way where it seems effortless. And no other car does that. And that's part of the magic, in my opinion, of these cars that I think can go... Certain people might not appreciate how special that is. Going fast is one thing, but going fast in a stable way that meets the criteria that you guys have is a very difficult task. And other cars feel more on edge. That's a lot easier to do. These cars feeling more solid the whole time and relaxing as you're going fast, that's unbelievable to me. And that's a testament to the engineering and the designs of these cars. Yeah,
I once saw online a man who originally commissioned that Vitesse was also known as the Governator,
yes.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. There's a fun picture of him driving in California, and he's a man who also has a lot of thanks for the Hummer H1. He was kind of
which is one
spokesman.
of my.
Yeah, so it's cool to see the Buginator, as you now call it.
Yes. Yeah, it's a fun
beautiful
car.
sight.
It's unbelievably remarkable to drive. It's great, and the Chiron platform takes it to the next level. And I'm really excited to drive the Chiron more. The Pure Sport is ever since Bugatti came out with the original Veyron, I said to everybody, I'm like, this is amazing. I wish they had a version that was a little bit more about the turns. And having this Pure Sport, you guys working on that, you literally answered my prayers for what I would want Bugatti to be. And you nailed it. That car is so exciting to me. Not to mention the 300 plus. I haven't talked much about that. I think that is the Veyron is the most iconic car of the previous generation, and I think with hitting the 300 mark and being the first to do it, it's kind of a nice cap to the other side of that for this generation as being the most iconic and unbelievable, beautiful. That Pure Sport though, with that wing and the arrow, and what I'm reading about the way it can exit turns, the speed it can accelerate is mind-bending. I have a very, very, very fast track focus, driver focused kind of car, and the Pure Sport is an entire second faster from 40 to 120 in American miles per hour. That's just, I can't imagine what that would be like. So that's an exciting thing.
Great.
Well, Chris, thank you very much for joining us.
Guys, thank you for having me.
We appreciate it. We know you're very, very busy during these times.
Continue to watch. Thank you, and thank you for putting this together. It's very exciting.
Thanks for coming on, Chris.
Stay safe, guys.
You too. Stay safe.
Frank, we have a question. If you were to commission a Pure Sport for your personal garage, what would you do?
I made the show car blue because I'm kind of the blue guy. I like that. It's called blue. It's really punchy blue. It's actually got blue tint in the clear coat to make it even more blue. But if it wasn't to be blue, let's say if you were asking me for another special configuration, I recently found again my love for greens. Actually, I saw an Irish green Porsche the other day, very nice. Olive green as well, very nice. Probably would go with some Havana interior with some cloth applications of tartan pattern or woven leather, some crazy stuff. I don't know. So that would probably be what I would go for the Pure Sport.
That's a good taste. Hendrik, what about you?
I would go definitely for a matte finished gray, I would say. When we worked on the 110 years edition, the 110 ans, we let's say did a lot of research and development, and the color we came across in the end is the perfect example of this steel blue, grayish, like bluish touch, matte finish, and this in a visible carbon. For me, is the perfect choice.
That sounds quite strong. Both very different, but beautiful, and in good taste. Another question, Frank. What inspires you? Is there something? If it's an animal or some, I saw you also put on some aircraft. Is there something that's inspired you beyond cars?
It's if you just take a designer and put a white sheet of paper in front of it and just say draw anything, that's rough. So we always try to either draw inspiration or work the nature of the project into the design as well, right? So in Bugatti, especially with the cars have to fulfill such high technical requirements, it's easy to find inspiration because there's always a technical need. There's something to wrap around, to package, to think about, to push the boundaries of, to reshape, to rethink, to just think out of the box for a solution for a specific problem. So the problem creates the inspiration for a new look that again then in turn becomes the next product. And there's always something to think about that way. And stylistically, obviously, we're always after proportions. Proportions is like in real estate is location, right? It's location, location, location. It's proportion, proportion, proportion. The wheels in relation to the overall vehicle height. How long are the overhangs? How long is the wheelbase in proportion to the overall length of the car? How high is the belt line? How high are the fenders? All of these are proportions. Like I don't know, beautiful body as well. How long are the legs? How thin is the waist, and so on. These are the things that we're looking for. So once you found the theme, let's say, it's like you're selecting the right ingredients, right? If you're a chef, then you're selecting the right ingredients to make up a meal that tastes absolutely delicious. You're trying to. There's infinite amounts of design themes out there, so you can sketch anything. But how does it match? First of all, what you're trying to do. What should the soul of the car be? What should the attitude of the car be? The character? What are you trying to do? A sporty, aggressive thing, or is it rather more elegant? So these things you choose, and then the themes kind of fall in place. But then you have to. You find a cool theme for the side, and you find a cool theme for the front, but they don't really match together. So you neglect the theme that you found for the side. You find another one. So it's making the car out of a solid, selection of themes that speak to each other, that fit together, front, side, rear, top, everything. And so once you found those themes, it's about developing the theme so that all the volumes are in the right place, right? So that the car it looks healthy from every perspective, and it's that decision making that the team and me and also our design director Achim Anscheid go through every day. And as I mentioned earlier on, we have timing schemes, so you have to. There's not much room for error. After you've focused on one theme 2 months down the line, you can't really go back and say, oh, I want to try another theme. You have to know what you're doing. But at the same time, you have to allow your team to be creative, to explore, to take the time and actually experiment. So, because only like that you can be creative and find new ground, really.
Yeah, wonderful. I think we should bring in Cedric. Cedric's the CEO of Bugatti of the Americas. We're going to bring him in for. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us, Cedric.
Hey, Cedric,
yeah, so sorry. I'm good, thank you. So sorry, I was here from the beginning of the call, obviously, but we wanted to make sure we had enough video feed for our customers, and I think Frank and Hendrik are a lot more important than I am.
No, not at all.
We're presenting, and you can have access to me a lot easier, I guess. So that's it. But thanks to all for joining.
Yeah, I think thank you guys so much. We appreciate all your valuable time to join us as our viewers, and as well as obviously thank you to Frank, and we really appreciate it. And thank you, Hendrik, and to everyone that joined us. And we can't wait to see you guys with greater product and development on your YouTube channels, on Instagram, and on email, on your website. You guys do beautiful work, and we thank you for your support. And we wish you guys a pleasant evening, and we hope to see you soon.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
All
right.